In 1976, reaching into a mailbox in rural Ohio became an act of pure terror. Your fingers brush against a crisp, white envelope. No return address. Postmarked Columbus. Inside, blocky, jagged handwriting bleeds through the paper, detailing the exact time you turned your living room lights off the night before. It knows who you sleep with. It knows what you stole. It promises that if you do not confess your darkest sins, your blood will soak the driveway you stand on. This is the true crime story of the Circleville Letters, an unsolved nightmare that tore a community apart. But the ink on these anonymous letters was just the beginning. Before this psychological torture was over, a rigged booby-trap pistol would nearly take a life, and the man convicted of the terror would prove his innocence in the most chilling way possible. A twist we will unravel shortly. Circleville, Ohio, was the kind of town where porch doors were left unlocked and everyone knew their neighbors. The air smelled of drying corn husks and damp asphalt. It was wrapped in the suffocating comfort of Midwestern routine. But underneath that idyllic veneer lay a festering rot of hidden affairs, quiet embezzlements, and whispered scandals. The writer of the Circleville Letters knew every single one of them. The assault began quietly. Residents pulled thick envelopes from their metal mailboxes. Unfolding the stiff paper, victims were greeted by bizarre, cramped printing. The letters were entirely written in block capitals, pressing so hard into the page that the paper itself was scarred. The messages were vicious, graphic, and alarmingly specific. They accused upstanding citizens of vile acts, threatening violence and absolute ruin. The tone was mocking, laced with cruel glee. It felt as though unblinking eyes were watching the town from the shadows. The primary target of this venom was Mary Gillespie. She drove the local school bus, living a completely ordinary life, defined by the rhythmic screech of air brakes. But the letters accused Mary of carrying on a secret, illicit affair with the superintendent of schools. The writer demanded she stop immediately, or her life would be forfeit. The terror was not just in the words, but in the delivery. The writer knew her route and schedule. When Mary tried to ignore the threats, the letters escalated, arriving at the homes of her family, friends, and husband, Ron. The town's atmosphere shifted from quiet comfort to suffocating paranoia. Neighbors began side-eyeing one another at the grocery store. Anyone could be the author. The grocer, the mechanic, the smiling woman at the bank. The community's trust was systematically dismantled, replaced by a toxic cloud of suspicion. Ron Gillespie, pushed to the brink by the constant stream of poison flowing into his home, finally snapped. On a muggy August night, the phone rang in the Gillespie house. We do not know what the voice on the other end said, but it was enough to make Ron grab his gun, storm out, and speed off into the dark to confront the letter writer. He never came back. His pickup truck was found wrapped around a timber tree at the bottom of a ravine. The sheriff's department ruled it a tragic, drunken crash, but the letter writer gleefully claimed responsibility. The anonymous letters mocked Ron's death, confirming the stakes had officially moved from paper threats to cold body bags. The author promised more funerals if their demands were not met. Mary Gillespie, now a widow, continued to drive her school bus route with a stubborn defiance that infuriated the phantom tormentor. The writer began erecting crude, hand-painted signs along her rural route, accusing her of awful things, visible to every child and commuter. This psychological warfare reached a terrifying crescendo on a crisp afternoon in 1977. Mary, driving her empty bus back to the depot, spotted a new sign lashed to a wooden fence post. Furious, she pulled over to the gravel shoulder. The air was dead quiet as she stepped into the tall grass, determined to tear the sign down with her bare hands. As she yanked at the wood, she heard a sickening metallic click. Hidden in the weeds, strapped to the back of the signpost, was a crude wooden box. Inside was a loaded pistol, its hammer pulled back, aiming at her chest. A piece of twine connected the trigger to the sign. It was a booby-trapped pistol, rigged to fire a fatal round. By sheer dumb luck, the mechanism jammed. The discovery of the trap sent shockwaves of pure panic through Circleville. The police finally had physical evidence. They traced the gun. The serial number had been filed off, but technicians raised the digits. The gun belonged to a man named Paul Freshour, Mary Gillespie's own brother-in-law. The pieces seemed to snap together with terrifying ease. Paul was arrested and charged with attempted murder. The trial was a media circus. The prosecution painted Paul as a bitter man who orchestrated this reign of terror to punish Mary. Despite Paul's adamant pleas of innocence and his rock-solid alibi for the day the trap was planted, the jury did not care. The town needed a monster to lock away. Paul Freshour was convicted and sentenced to prison. The town breathed a collective sigh of relief. The nightmare, they believed, was finally over. But here is the chilling truth about the Circleville Letters. Paul Freshour was sent to the Lama Correctional Institution. He was placed in solitary confinement. He had no access to the outside world, no phone calls, and his mail was strictly monitored. The heavy steel door clanged shut, sealing him in absolute isolation. And yet, the very next week, the mail carrier in Circleville continued their route. The metal hinges of the mailboxes squeaked open. Inside, waiting like a coiled snake, were crisp white envelopes, postmarked Columbus, written in the exact same scarred, blocky handwriting. The venomous anonymous letters returned. They flooded the town, arriving at the police station to mock the sheriff and the courthouse to taunt the judge. They laughed at the town's stupidity, explicitly stating that the police had locked up an innocent man, and the real author was still out there, walking among them. Even while locked in a concrete box, Paul Freshour received a letter himself. It slipped through the prison mail system, landing on his narrow metal cot. He opened it to find the familiar, jagged text. It read, "When are you going to believe you aren't going to get out of there? I told you 2 years ago. When we set them up, they stay set up." This true crime story remains an open wound, an unsolved nightmare that refuses to heal. For 2 decades, the anonymous letters continued to terrorize the residents. The mastermind behind the booby-trapped pistol was never discovered. The suffocating paranoia never truly faded, because the people of Circleville know that the phantom who held their lives hostage might still be living right next door.
Welcome to Crime Reveals.